Hello students, good morning. In this COVID-19 pandemic situation, I hope you all are safe and healthy at your home. In last lectures, we completed our unit number 1. Now we start next unit, unit number 2. In this unit, we studying classification of drugs. First of all, we start with classification of drugs. Past lectures, we studied about drugs. Now in this classification of drugs and some groups of drugs like anti-TB or anti-tuberculosis drugs, anti-leprotic drugs, anti-diabetic drugs, anthelmintics, and antiseptic drugs. So, in this unit and in this paper, synthetic drugs, we first start with the classification of drugs. Drugs can be classified according to various criteria. Usually, they may be classified in the following two ways. Number one, on the basis of their chemical structures, and number two, on the basis of their therapeutic actions. So we detail study about both this class. So first of all, we start with the on the basis of their chemical structures. This classification was extensively used some years ago and it is still used by some authors. Following the classification, drugs may come in one or more of these categories, such as acetals, acids, alcohols, amides, amidines, amines, amino acids, amino alcohols, amino ethers, amino ketones, ammonium compounds, azo compounds, anols, esters, ethers, glycosides, guanidines, halogenated compounds, hydrocarbons, ketones, lactams, mustards, nitro compounds, nitroso compounds, organominerals, phenols, quinones, semicarbazides, stilbene, sulfonamides, sulfones, thiols, thioamides, thioureas, ureas, urides, and urethans. So, this classification is based on the structure of chemicals or drugs. Now, second main type, on the basis of their therapeutic actions. Whenever the classification of drugs is done on the basis of their chemical structure, there occurs splitting up of groups of drugs which have the same physiological action. Also, the chemical structure of drugs represents such diverse structures that very little knowledge is obtained by placing them in special chemical categories. Whenever, on the other hand, the classification of drugs is done on the basis of their therapeutic actions, this will tend to obscure their chemical reassembles and thus it would be difficult to give description of chemistry of various groups of drugs. Moreover, chemical classification is only suitable for studying their chemical properties, synthesis, and so on, but not their therapeutic action. On the other hand, a rigid therapeutic classification would render it difficult to give description of chemistry of various groups of drugs. By keeping the various limitations of the two systems of classification of drugs in view, a compromise between the two way is struck. The drugs are first divided according to their therapeutic action and then subdivided according to their chemical structures. So, now, according to their therapeutic actions, the drugs are classified into following broad types. Main four types for the therapeutic actions. Number 1, CNS, that is the central nervous system. CNS or psychopharmacological agents. Number 2, pharmacodynamic agents. Number 3, chemotherapeutic agents. And number 4, metabolic disease and endocrine function. So this is the four main types of according to their therapeutic actions. Now we see these four types in detail. So first of all we start with CNS or psychopharmacological agents. These are the drugs which are acting on central nervous system. Central nervous system, its short name is CNS. The central nervous system in men consists of the brain and the spinal cord and is able to control thought processes, emotions, sense, and motor functions. Drugs in this category, the psychotropics include antidepressants, antipsychotics, anxiolytics, and psychomimetics, all of which affect mood or mental functionings. CNS drugs also includes in this class there is four sub classes. Number 1 or A, anticonvulsant used for the treatment of epilepsy, a major convulsive disease. Number B, sedative hypnotics which are used in the sleep disorders. Number C, analgesics for the control of pain. And number D, anti-Parkinsonia agents used for the treatment of Parkinson's disease, which is a major motor disorder. Now, number 2, pharmacodynamic agents. These are drugs which affect the normal dynamic processes of the body, especially the blood circulations. This group includes anti-arrhythmics, anti-anginals, vasodilators, antihypertensives, and antithrombotics, all of which in some way affect the heart or blood circulation. This category also include drugs used for the treatment of a wide variety of allergic disease and drugs which affect the gastrointestinal system. Number 3. Chemotherapeutic agents. These are an extremely important class of compound which are selectively more toxic for invading organisms than for the host and include the antibiotics, anti-neoplastic, antivirals and antifungals. And number 4, metabolic disease and endocrine functions. This category includes a miscellaneous of agents not conveniently classified in the other group. Hence, the groups comprise drugs for treatment of inflammation, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, disorder of lipid metabolism, atherosclerosis, as well as sex hormones and peptide hormones. So this is the main four type. Now we classify the drugs according to their therapeutic actions. The drugs may be classified in the following six types. So in this lecture we also studying about these six classes of the drugs. Number 1, drugs acting on central nervous system. Number 2, drugs stimulating or blocking the peripheral nervous system. Number 3, drugs acting on the cardiovascular, hematopoietic and renal system. And number 4, chemotherapeutic drugs. Number 5, vitamins. And number 6, hormones. We studied these all six drugs in detail. So first of all we start with the drugs acting on central nervous system. Drugs acting on the central nervous system can either depress or stimulate its function. These drugs are usually divided into three broad classes. We classified these drugs in following three classes. Number 1, non-selective central nervous system depressants, general anesthetics, hypnotics and sedatives, narcotic analgesics, antipyretic and antirheumatic analgesics. Number 2, selective modifiers of central nervous system, anticonvulsants, antitussives, psychotherapeutic agents, central intraneural blocking agents, and last number 3, central nervous system stimulants. So this is the first classification. Now second, the drugs stimulating or blocking the peripheral nervous system. Drugs acting on the peripheral nervous system can either stimulate it or block it. Within the exception of local anesthetics, all these drugs act by altering the transmission of impulses between synapses or between neuroeffector junctions. They comprise the following classes of drugs. There are also four types of these drugs. We show 1, cholinergic and anticholinergic agents. Number 2, adrenergic stimulants, adrenergic blocking agents, and inhibitors of catecholamine biosynthesis and metabolism. Number 3, histamine and antihistamine agents. And last, local anesthetics. Now, number 3. Number 3, drugs acting on the cardiovascular, hematopoietic, and renal system. This group includes drugs that affect cardiovascular functions as well as those that act on blood vessels and the renal system. Cardiovascular agents include cardiotonic, antiarrhythmic, antihypertensive, vasodilator, and hypercholesteremic agents. Drugs acting on the blood are called hematological agents. They are comprised of antiemetics, coagulants, anticoagulants, and plasma expanders. Agents that affect the renal system are called diuretics. So, in this class, we have two definitions, namely hematological agent and diuretics. Now, number 4, chemotherapeutic drugs. Chemotherapeutic agents are drugs used in the treatment of infectious disease. Those diseases are caused by certain species of metazoan, protozoa, fungi, bacteria, rickettsia, and viruses. Drugs acting on those pathogenic agents may be further divided into following types. Number A, organometallic compound. Number B, anthelmintic agents. Number C, anti-malarial agents. Number D, anti-protozoal agents. Number E, antiseptic, antifungal, and antibacterial agents. Number F, sulfonamides. Number G, anti-tuberculosis and anti-leprosal agents. Number H, antibiotics. Number I, anti-neoplastic agents. And number J, antiviral agents. So, these are the subclasses of chemotherapeutic drugs. The term chemotherapy, which literally means chemical therapy or chemical treatment, was coined in 1930 by Paul Ehrlich, the father of modern chemotherapy. He uttered the famous phrase corpora non agunt nisi fixet. The meaning of this sentence is drugs do not act unless they bind. So, Ehrlich efforts was directed towards the discovery of magic bullet, that is a chemical substance which selective with selective action on the parasites but devoid of toxic effects to the host. Ehrlich defined chemotherapy as the use of drugs to injure an invading organism without causing injury to the host. According to the Ehrlich, therefore, chemotherapeutic agents are chemical substances with high cytotropism and low or no organotropism. In other words, they have selectively toxicity, being harmful as much as possible to the invading organism, but innocuous to the host. Although some authors impart to chemotherapy a broader meaning, such as treatment of any disease by chemicals, including infectious and non infectious disease, such as psychic disorders, most authors adhere to enriched definitions. Some differences may be pointed out between chemotherapy and pharmacodynamics. Among them are following. Some points we also show difference between the chemotherapy and pharmacodynamics. So, number A, chemotherapeutic agent find use in the treatment and cure of infectious disease, while pharmacodynamic agents are used for relief and correction of abnormal functions. Number B, chemotherapeutic agents usually exert an irreversible action by attracting strongly, sometimes through a covalent bond, to special moieties of the molecules of the invading organisms, while pharmacodynamic agents should preferably produce reversible results by forming weak bonds with the pharmacological receptors. Number C, in chemotherapeutic agents, the all or nothing effect has been unobjectionable, whereas pharmacodynamic agents are expected to give a graded response according to the dose administered. Number D, potential chemotherapeutic agents are often easily screened because in many cases it is very simple to isolate the invading organism and study is separately, while in pharmacodynamic agents have been found to be more difficult to test because it is not possible as yet to isolate receptor molecules. Some chemotherapeutic agents may have one or both of following effects. Number A, static, and number B, cidal. We first of all saw number A, static. When they inhibit further growth or multiplication of the invading organism or cell. And number B, cidal, when they kill or destroy it. For instance, we have both bacteriostatic and bactericidal agents. Static and cidal effects depend on the several factors such as concentration of drug, pH, temperature, duration of action, metabolic phase of the invader, presence of interfering substances. These drugs with static effect may exert cidal effect if the dose are increased. The ideal chemotherapeutic agent is considered to be one with selective toxicity to the parasite and innocuity to the host. As no such an agent exists and very likely never will be, developed or found. The relative efficiency and safety of chemotherapeutic agents has been indicated by the so-called chemotherapeutic index, which may be expressed by the following relationship or the equations. Chemotherapeutic index is equal to maximum tolerable dose by the host divided by minimal creative dose. So this is the equation or relationship for the chemotherapeutic index. For any patient, we put the value and we find out the chemotherapeutic index of drugs. Now, the greater the index, the better the chemotherapeutic agent because of its greater safety to the patient. In chemotherapy, the close interrelationship among three different entities should always be taken into considerable: drug, parasite, and host. These are three different entities. Each one act on the remaining two. Thus, the drugs act predominantly on the parasite but also, although less intensively, on the host. The parasite can interfere with both drug and some normal physiological or metabolic processes of the host. In similar way, the host can act on both drugs, either activating or inactivating it through enzymatic pathway and parasites by phagocytosis for instance. Number 5, vitamins. We have six types and this is the number 5, vitamins. These are comparatively simple organic compounds which are required by the animals for maintenance and normal growth of the life. These are supplied by the food because this cannot be synthesized by animal except vitamin D. Only vitamin D is synthesized in our body. Their presence is essential for normal metabolism of body cell through they neither supply energy nor serve as building materials. Vitamins resemble hormones in their functions and both are required in small quantities. Unlike hormones, vitamins are not synthesized by the body but are supplied through the food. If the diet lacks in one or more vitamins, deficiency disease results. There are about 25 different vitamins, not that 25 different vitamins known to exist. Out of these vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K are fat soluble. That is, on the solubility, we classified vitamins into two types, water soluble and fat soluble. So, number 1, water soluble, vitamins of group B and vitamin C. In short, vitamin B and C are water soluble, while vitamin A, D, E, and K are fat soluble. So this is the information of vitamins. And last, number 6, hormones. Classification of drugs. Last point is number 6, hormones. These are the chemical substances which are produced by endocrine glands. These glands are generally known as ductless glands because their secretions, the hormones, are passed directly into the bloodstream for transmission to various target tissues. The hormones catalyze and control diverse metabolic processes. These are required in small amount and are highly specific in their functions. The deficiency of hormones is a disease called physiological disease. However, this can be cured by giving that particular hormones. Some hormones with their organ of secretion and their function are given in this table, which are the most important. So, number one is insulin. Insulin. You all are known about insulin. Its secretion is in pancreas, and its function it decrease blood glucose. Today we all know about the insulin. If in our body there is a loss of insulin, then we suffering from diabetes. So it is very important. Number two is testosterone. It and it is from testes, and function of it develops male sex hormones. Number 3, estrogen, that is from ovary, and it develops female sex organs. Number 4, progesterone, it is also from ovary and it prepare ultras for pregnancy. It affects menstrual cycle. Number 5, pituitary hormones. It is from pituitary gland and it stimulates adrenal cortex, thyroid gland, testes, ovaries and mammary glands. Number 6, cortisone. It is from adrenal cortex. It undertakes metabolism of water, mineral salts, fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And last, number 6, adrenaline. It is from adrenal medulla. It increases pulse rate and blood pressure. It releases glucose from glycogen and fatty acid from fats. So this is the classification of drugs by their therapeutic actions and chemical structures. Now, at last point, hormones are further classified as following. Number A, thyroid hormones and antithyroid drugs. Number B, pituitary and hypothalamic hormones. Number C, pancreas hormones and hypoglycemic agents. Number D, sex hormones. And number E, last, adrenal cortex hormone. Complete classification of drugs. Thank you.